On a chilly autumn morning in downtown Detroit, a 12-year-old boy huddled under a thin blanket behind the local grocery store. Life hadn't been kind to him since his grandmother's passing 6 months ago. With no other family to turn to, he found himself navigating the harsh realities of street life, relying on the kindness of strangers and his own wit to survive. Despite his circumstances, the boy maintained an unwavering sense of integrity that his grandmother had instilled in him. He'd often recall her words, "Your character is what you do when nobody's watching." These words echoed in his mind as he made his way through each challenging day. That morning, while searching for recyclables near the shopping district, something caught his eye. A leather purse lay abandoned on a bench, seemingly forgotten by its owner. The boy approached cautiously, looking around to see if anyone was nearby. His heart raced as he picked up the purse. It was heavy, and through the open zipper, he could see a wallet stuffed with cash. For a moment, he stood frozen, his mind racing with possibilities. The money could buy him warm meals for weeks, maybe even a proper coat for the approaching winter. But his grandmother's voice whispered in his head, reminding him of the values she'd taught him. Just then, he heard distressed voices coming from a nearby coffee shop. A well-dressed woman in her 50s was frantically searching her pockets, panic evident on her face. The boy watched as she retraced her steps, growing more anxious with each passing moment. Without hesitation, he clutched the purse to his chest and walked toward the coffee shop. His worn-out sneakers made soft sounds against the pavement as he approached the woman. "Excuse me," he said softly, his voice barely audible above the morning traffic. "Did you lose something?" The woman turned, her worried expression instantly transforming into one of disbelief and relief when she saw her purse in the boy's hands. "Oh my goodness," she exclaimed, tears welling up in her eyes. Yes. That's my purse." She reached for it with trembling hands, explaining that it contained not just money but irreplaceable family photos and important documents. As she checked the contents of her purse, she noticed nothing was missing, not even a single dollar. Looking at the boy more closely now, she saw his threadbare clothes, the dark circles under his eyes, and the way he seemed to shrink into himself, as if trying to become invisible. "Where are your parents?" she asked gently, noticing how he shifted uncomfortably at the question. The boy's eyes dropped to the ground as he explained his situation in quiet, halting words. He told her about his grandmother, about the months on the street, and about his daily struggle to maintain his dignity while surviving on his own. The woman listened intently, her heart breaking with each detail. She owned a small but successful catering business and had grown up in similar circumstances herself. She recognized in this young boy the same resilience and integrity that had helped her overcome her own challenges. "Would you like to have breakfast with me?" she asked, gesturing toward the coffee shop. The boy hesitated, years of learned caution making him wary of strangers, even kind ones. But something in her genuine smile and warm eyes reminded him of his grandmother. Over hot chocolate and a warm breakfast, his first proper meal in days, they talked more. The woman learned about his love for mathematics, how he still tried to read borrowed books whenever he could, and how he dreamed of becoming an architect someday. Despite everything life had thrown at him, his spirit remained unbroken, his dreams still alive. As morning turned to noon, the woman made a decision that would change both their lives forever. She had been looking to hire young apprentices for her catering business, teaching them both culinary skills and business management. More importantly, she had the means and desire to offer guidance to someone who reminded her so much of herself at that age. She saw in this young boy not just someone who needed help, but someone whose integrity and strength of character deserved to be nurtured. His honest action with her purse had revealed his true nature, one that reflected the values his grandmother had worked so hard to instill in him. The story of their chance encounter would soon spread through their community, touching hearts and inspiring others. But for now, in that small coffee shop, a new chapter was beginning, one that would prove that sometimes, the smallest acts of honesty can open the biggest doors. The following weeks brought changes that the boy could hardly believe were real. The woman, who asked him to call her Aunt Rose, had contacted social services and, after several meetings and paperwork, became his temporary guardian. She transformed the small apartment above her catering business into a cozy living space for him, complete with a real bed, something he hadn't slept in for months. Adjusting to his new life wasn't easy. The first few nights, he would wake up startled, momentarily forgetting where he was. The comfort of a warm bed and safe shelter felt almost foreign after months of sleeping in alleyways and abandoned buildings. Sometimes, he would find himself unconsciously saving bits of food, a habit formed during his time on the streets that would take time to fade. Aunt Rose noticed these little things but never drew attention to them. Instead, she focused on helping him rebuild his life step by step. The first priority was getting him back into school. With her connections in the community, she managed to enroll him in a local public school that had a good support system for students who needed to catch up. The boy's first day back at school was a mixture of excitement and anxiety. His new backpack felt heavy with fresh supplies, and his clean clothes still had price tags creases in them. As he walked through the school corridors, he felt both out of place and grateful. Some students stared at the new kid, but a friendly boy from his math class invited him to sit together at lunch. After school, he would help at the catering business. Aunt Rose started by teaching him simple tasks, how to properly wash vegetables, measure ingredients, and maintain an organized kitchen. She noticed how quickly he picked up mathematics related to scaling recipes and managing inventory. His natural aptitude for numbers, combined with his eagerness to learn, made him a quick study. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. One day, a customer at the catering business recognized him from his time on the streets and made a snide comment within earshot. The boy froze, shame and anger washing over him as memories of his hardest days came flooding back. But before he could react, Aunt Rose stepped in. With quiet dignity, she addressed the customer, "This young man is my apprentice, and his past circumstances don't define his future. His honesty and work ethic speak volumes about his character." That evening, they had a long talk about pride, resilience, and the importance of not letting others' judgments define you. Aunt Rose shared more about her own past, how she too had faced hardships and prejudices but had learned to use those experiences as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. The boy's academic progress surprised even his teachers. Despite having missed months of school, his natural intelligence and determination helped him catch up quickly. His math teacher particularly noticed his potential and stayed after school twice a week to help him with advanced concepts. The boy's dream of becoming an architect started to feel less like a fantasy and more like a possible future. As winter approached, Aunt Rose noticed him becoming quieter, more withdrawn. She eventually learned that this time last year was when his grandmother had fallen ill. Understanding the weight of this grief, she helped him channel it into something positive. Together, they started a small program at the catering business, providing free meals to homeless children in the area every Sunday. The boy threw himself into this initiative, helping plan menus, calculate quantities, and even serve the food. Each time he saw a child come in from the cold, he remembered his own experiences and felt grateful for the chance to help. Some of the regular kids started looking up to him, and he found himself sharing bits of wisdom his grandmother had taught him. One particularly cold Sunday, while serving soup, he recognized a face, another boy he'd known from his time on the streets. The moment could have been awkward, but instead, it became powerful. He shared his story with the other boy, telling him about Aunt Rose and how one honest action had changed everything. "Sometimes help comes from unexpected places," he said, "but you have to stay true to yourself to recognize it when it comes." Aunt Rose watched this interaction from the kitchen, her heart swelling with pride. She saw how her decision to help one child was creating ripples of positive change in the community. The boy wasn't just receiving help anymore, he was learning to give it too. As Christmas approached, the catering business became incredibly busy with holiday orders. The boy proved invaluable, helping manage orders, double-checking calculations, and even suggesting more efficient ways to organize deliveries. His mind for numbers and spatial relationships, the same skills that drew him to architecture, helped streamline their operations. One evening, while they were cleaning up after a big order, Aunt Rose presented him with a special gift, a professional drawing set and some basic architecture books. "I notice you sketching building designs on your break," she said warmly. "Your grandmother believed in your dreams, and so do I." That night, as he sat at his desk looking out at the city lights, the boy felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time: hope for the future. He thought about how far he'd come from those dark days on the street, and how one moment of honesty had opened the door to all of this. His grandmother's words about character echoed in his mind, and he smiled, knowing she would be proud of the path he was on. As spring bloomed across the city, the boy's transformation continued to unfold in remarkable ways. His excellent performance in school, particularly in mathematics and art, caught the attention of his teachers. When the annual citywide academic competition was announced, his math teacher strongly encouraged him to participate, seeing it as an opportunity to showcase his talents. The prospect both excited and terrified him. While confident in his abilities, the boy worried about competing against students from more privileged backgrounds who hadn't missed months of schooling. Aunt Rose noticed his internal struggle and sat with him one evening after closing the catering business. "You know," she said, while they shared a piece of leftover apple pie, "success isn't about where you started, it's about how far you're willing to go." She shared stories of her early days starting the catering business, how some people wouldn't hire her because of her background, and how she proved them wrong through dedication and hard work. Inspired by her words, the boy devoted himself to preparation. He would wake up early to study before helping with breakfast catering orders, and stay up late practicing complex problems. Aunt Rose noticed how he would sketch geometric patterns while thinking through mathematical concepts, combining his love for architecture with his problem-solving skills. The day of the competition arrived with spring rain pattering against the windows. As they drove to the hosting school, the boy clutched his calculator, his heart racing with nervous energy. The competition venue was intimidating, a prestigious private school with marble columns and manicured lawns. Some competitors arrived in expensive cars, wearing school uniforms that probably cost more than all his new clothes combined. But when the first round began, something unexpected happened. As he worked through the problems, the boy found himself thinking about the practical mathematics he'd learned helping Aunt Rose, calculating ingredient ratios, managing inventory, and planning delivery routes. These real-world applications had given him a unique understanding of mathematical concepts that went beyond textbook learning. During the lunch break, he overheard other competitors discussing their private tutors and advanced math programs. Instead of feeling discouraged, he thought about his own journey, solving math problems by candlelight in abandoned buildings, counting coins to buy food, and now helping manage a business's finances. Each experience had taught him something valuable. The final round of the competition involved a complex problem combining geometry and business mathematics. While other students struggled with the abstract concepts, the boy approached it like he would a catering order, breaking down the problem into manageable parts, just as he did when planning large events with Aunt Rose. When the results were announced, the boy had placed second in the entire city. The audience applauded politely, but few knew the significance of this achievement. Aunt Rose, however, was crying tears of joy, knowing exactly how far he had come to reach this moment. The local newspaper covered the competition, and when they interviewed him about his success, he spoke about Aunt Rose and the catering business. The reporter, intrigued by their story, delved deeper. Soon, a feature article appeared telling the story of the homeless boy who returned a purse and the businesswoman who gave him a chance. The article caught the attention of a local architectural firm's community outreach program. They had been looking for ways to support promising students interested in architecture from underprivileged backgrounds. The firm's director reached out to Aunt Rose, proposing to include the boy in their junior mentorship program. This opportunity opened up a whole new world. Every other Saturday, he would visit the firm, learning about architectural drawings, 3D modeling, and sustainable design principles. The architects were impressed by his natural understanding of spatial relationships and his unique perspective on urban spaces, shaped by his experiences on the streets. One project particularly moved them, his design for a community center that included innovative spaces for homeless youth. He incorporated practical elements he wished he'd had access to: secure storage lockers, private study areas, and a teaching kitchen similar to Aunt Rose's catering business. Back at school, his academic success and growing confidence began attracting new friendships. The same students who had once whispered about his background now sought his help with math problems. He never forgot his past though, continuing to help with the Sunday meal program and sharing his story with other kids struggling to find their path. Aunt Rose's business was thriving too, partly thanks to the positive publicity from the newspaper article, but mostly due to their hard work and innovation. The boys' suggestions for modernizing their ordering system and delivery routes had streamlined their operation significantly. They had even started a small training program, teaching basic culinary and business skills to other young people in need of a fresh start. One evening, as they sat doing paperwork together, Aunt Rose presented him with a document. She wanted to begin the formal adoption process. "You've been my son in my heart for months now," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'd like to make it official, but only if that's what you want." The boy stared at the papers, tears welling in his eyes. He thought about his grandmother, how she had always told him that family wasn't just about blood, but about love and choices. Looking at Aunt Rose, he saw someone who had chosen him, believed in him, and helped him believe in himself. That night, as he worked on his latest architectural sketch, he found himself designing something new: a house. Not a mansion or a fancy apartment building, but a home that combined elements of his grandmother's old house with features of Aunt Rose's catering business. It was his way of connecting his past with his present and future, acknowledging how far he'd come while remembering where he started. The boy who once slept behind a grocery store was becoming an inspiration to others in his community. His story wasn't just about returning a purse anymore, it was about perseverance, about maintaining dignity in difficult circumstances, and about how one act of honesty could set in motion a chain of events that would transform not just one life, but many. Summer arrived with both challenges and opportunities. The adoption process was moving forward, but it stirred up complex emotions for the boy. While excited about officially becoming part of Aunt Rose's family, he found himself thinking more about his grandmother and their life together. The memories, though bittersweet, needed to be addressed. Aunt Rose noticed his contemplative mood and suggested they visit his grandmother's grave together. They spent a morning cleaning the modest headstone and planting fresh flowers. As they sat there, the boy shared stories about his grandmother, her love for gospel music, how she taught him to make cornbread, and her unwavering belief in education despite having limited schooling herself. "You know," Aunt Rose said gently, "having a new family doesn't mean forgetting your old one. Your grandmother will always be part of who you are." She then surprised him by revealing that she'd been saving money to have a proper headstone made, one that would truly honor his grandmother's memory. The boy's architectural mentorship program intensified over the summer. The firm had him working on a special project, designing a small community garden with a teaching kitchen, inspired by his experiences with Aunt Rose's catering business. His design incorporated elements that reflected both his past and present: raised beds accessible to elderly gardeners like his grandmother had been, a kitchen where cooking classes could be held, and a covered area where the community could gather. The project caught the attention of a local community development organization. They were so impressed by the design's practical and thoughtful elements that they decided to make it a reality. The boy found himself in meetings with real architects and urban planners, his voice being heard and his ideas taken seriously. Meanwhile, the catering business faced an unexpected challenge. A new, upscale catering company moved into the area, threatening to take away some of their corporate clients. Instead of panicking, Aunt Rose saw it as an opportunity to innovate. Together with the boy, they brainstormed ways to make their business stand out. Drawing from his architectural studies, the boy suggested creating unique presentation designs for their food displays. They began offering themed setups that told stories through food arrangement and decoration. His understanding of spatial relationships and aesthetic design brought a fresh perspective to their presentations. The business also expanded their community program. Every person they hired through their training program had a story similar to the boy's, people who needed a second chance. The boy became a mentor to many of them, sharing his experiences and the lessons he'd learned about perseverance and dignity. One trainee particularly reminded him of himself. A teenage girl who had been living in a shelter showed the same determination he had once shown. He took her under his wing, teaching her both practical skills and sharing the wisdom he'd gained. Sometimes, he told her, the hardest part isn't surviving the tough times, it's learning to accept the good times when they come. As the summer progressed, the boy's adoption day approached. The court date was set, but a week before, something unexpected happened. A distant relative, having read about him in the newspaper, came forward claiming interest in custody. The news sent shockwaves through their lives. The relative, a second cousin who had never been part of his life before, argued that family should stay with family. The boy was terrified of losing the stable life he'd built with Aunt Rose. The legal proceedings became complicated, requiring them to attend multiple hearings. During this difficult time, the community they'd built rallied around them. The architects from his mentorship program wrote letters of support. Families whose children he'd tutored in math spoke about his positive influence. Even some of the people from their Sunday meal program came forward to share how his story had inspired them. In court, the boy himself spoke with a maturity that moved everyone present. He talked about what family truly meant, not just blood ties, but the bonds formed through love, support, and shared experiences. He spoke about Aunt Rose's unwavering support, how she had not only given him a home but had helped him build a future. The judge listened intently as the boy described his journey from homelessness to hope, from surviving to thriving. When asked about his distant relative, he was respectful but firm. "I appreciate them wanting to help now, but Aunt Rose chose me when I had nothing to offer but my honesty. She's been my real family since the day she found me." The court ruled in favor of Aunt Rose's adoption, recognizing the strong bonds and stable environment she had provided. The day the adoption was finalized, their celebration wasn't just about becoming legally family, it was about affirming what they had known in their hearts for months. The boy's architectural design for the community garden broke ground that same week. As he watched the construction begin, he reflected on how his life had changed since that morning he found the purse. Each challenge he'd faced, from homelessness to academic competitions to the recent custody battle, had taught him something valuable. Aunt Rose's catering business had evolved too. Their unique presentation designs and community-focused approach had actually attracted more clients, even some who had initially been drawn to the new upscale competition. Their success wasn't just measured in profits though, it was measured in the number of lives they'd helped transform. That evening, as they sat in their apartment above the catering business, Aunt Rose presented him with a family heirloom, her father's watch. "He wore this while building his first business," she explained. "It reminds me that time is precious, and it's what we do with it that matters." The boy fastened the watch around his wrist, feeling the weight of its history. He thought about time, how quickly life could change, how moments of choice could alter destinies, and how the future was being built one decision at a time. Looking out at the city skyline, he saw not just buildings, but stories waiting to be told, lives waiting to be changed, just as his had been. As autumn painted the city in vibrant colors, the boy's life continued to evolve in unexpected ways. The community garden project he designed was nearly complete, transforming what had once been an empty lot into a thriving space for neighborhood gatherings. However, with success came new challenges that would test his resilience in ways he hadn't expected. One morning, while helping with breakfast preparations at the catering business, he received news that would change everything. His architectural mentorship program was offering him a chance to attend a prestigious 2-week summer workshop in Chicago. It was an incredible opportunity, but the program cost was substantial, even with partial sponsorship. Aunt Rose immediately began planning how they could make it work financially. The catering business was doing well, but this would be a significant expense. The boy, however, had his own idea. He'd been saving money from his work at the catering business, originally planning to buy a proper drawing tablet for his architectural designs. "I want to earn this myself," he told Aunt Rose one evening. "You've already given me so much." His words touched her deeply, but she also saw an opportunity to teach him about family and acceptance. "Sometimes," she said, "letting people help you is as important as helping others." They reached a compromise. They would work together to raise the funds. The boy designed special event packages for the catering business, combining his architectural eye for presentation with their culinary expertise. They called it Building Flavors, offering unique food displays inspired by famous architectural landmarks. The concept was an immediate hit. Corporate clients loved the innovative presentations, and soon they were booked solid with events. The boys' mathematical skills came in handy as they calculated costs and scaled the designs for different party sizes. Every weekend, he would help set up these edible architectural displays, explaining the inspiration behind each design to interested clients. During this time, the community garden project was completed. The opening ceremony brought together people from all walks of life, business professionals who'd supported the project, local residents who would use the space, and even some of the homeless youth who still attended their Sunday meal program. Standing at the podium to give a short speech, the boy felt overwhelmed with emotion. He saw faces in the crowd that reminded him of his own journey, the math teacher who'd encouraged him to compete, the architects who'd mentored him, and the people from the streets who'd known him during his hardest days. "This garden," he said, his voice steadied despite his nerves, "is more than just plants and buildings. It's about growth, not just of vegetables, but of people and communities. A year ago, I was homeless, thinking my dreams were impossible. But one act of honesty, one person's kindness, and a community's support changed everything." His words resonated deeply with the audience, particularly with a group of teenage boys from the local shelter who'd been invited to the ceremony. After his speech, they approached him, curious about his journey from homelessness to designing community spaces. The boy spent time with them, sharing his story and listening to theirs. This interaction sparked an idea. Working with Aunt Rose and the architectural firm, he developed a proposal for a mentorship program that would introduce underprivileged youth to architecture and design. The program would use the community garden's teaching kitchen as a classroom, combining practical skills with creative learning. As winter approached, their fundraising efforts for the Chicago workshop were progressing well, but they were still short of their goal. Then, something unexpected happened. The story of their Building Flavors concept caught the attention of a local business magazine. The reporter was particularly interested in how they were using the proceeds to fund educational opportunities. The article led to a surge of bookings, with clients specifically requesting their architectural displays. But more importantly, it caught the attention of an anonymous donor who offered to cover the remaining cost of the workshop. The donor's message simply read, "Investing in dreams is the best investment we can make in our community." The boy was moved to tears when he learned about the donation. It reminded him of how far he'd come from the day he'd found that purse, how one act of kindness could create a ripple effect that touched countless lives. The success of their fundraising efforts allowed them to expand their community initiatives. They started offering basic business and culinary training at the garden's teaching kitchen, helping other young people develop practical skills. The boy often shared his story during these sessions, emphasizing how education and honesty had opened doors for him. During one of these sessions, a young participant asked him if he ever regretted returning the purse, knowing he could have used the money when he was homeless. The boy's response came from his heart: "That money would have helped me survive for a few weeks. But returning it helped me build a life." Sometimes the right choice isn't the easy choice, but it's always worth it in the end. As Christmas approached again, the boy worked on a special project, designing holiday-themed food displays that told the story of his journey. Each display represented a different chapter: the streets where he'd struggled, the moment of choice with the purse, the catering business that became his home, and the community garden that represented his future. The holiday season brought a surge of business, keeping them busy with events and community programs. Despite the hectic schedule, Aunt Rose insisted on maintaining their Sunday meal program. On one particularly cold Sunday, they served their 1,000th meal of the year, a milestone that represented not just food served, but hope shared. Looking back on the year's achievements, the community garden, the successful fundraising, the new mentorship program, the boy realized that his life had become more than just a story of survival. It had become a testament to the power of integrity, the importance of community, and the truth that every person deserves a chance to build their dreams. One evening, while cleaning up after a big event, he found himself sketching new designs on a napkin. But this time, they weren't just buildings or food displays, they were visions of future community projects, spaces that could help others like him bridge the gap between survival and success. In these drawings, he was no longer just planning structures, he was designing hope. Spring brought new beginnings and unexpected challenges. As the boy prepared for the upcoming Chicago workshop, he received news that would test everything he'd learned about resilience and community. The building housing Aunt Rose's catering business was being sold, and the new owners had different plans for the space. They had 3 months to either buy the building or relocate. The news hit hard. The building wasn't just their business location, it was their home, their community hub, and the foundation of everything they'd built together. The asking price was far beyond what they could afford, and suitable alternative locations were either too expensive or too far from the community they served. The boy spent nights poring over the building's blueprints, which he'd obtained from the city archives. He studied every detail, looking for ways they might be able to renovate and maximize the space to make a purchase worthwhile. His architectural training helped him see possibilities others might miss. During one of his mentorship sessions at the firm, he shared his concerns with his mentors. The architects listened intently as he explained the situation, impressed by his thorough analysis of the building's potential. One of the senior architects, moved by their story and the boy's dedication, offered to help them prepare a proper business proposal for potential investors. Word spread through their community about the situation. The families they'd served, the students he'd tutored, and the people they'd helped through their training programs all wanted to help. A local business association meeting was called to discuss the situation, recognizing that Aunt Rose's catering business had become an essential part of the neighborhood's revival. During the meeting, the boy presented his vision for the building. Using his architectural skills, he designed a comprehensive renovation plan that would not only preserve their current operations but expand their community impact. The first floor would remain the catering business and teaching kitchen, the second floor would become an expanded training center, and the third floor would be converted into affordable housing units for program participants transitioning out of homelessness. His presentation impressed the business association members. The practical nature of his design, combined with its potential social impact, sparked interest from several local entrepreneurs. One business owner suggested creating a community investment cooperative to purchase the building, with Aunt Rose's business as the anchor tenant and managing partner. The idea gained momentum. Community members began pledging small investments, from local business owners to families who'd benefited from their programs. Even some of their corporate catering clients, impressed by their social impact, expressed interest in participating. However, they were still far from their goal when an unexpected visitor arrived at their door one morning. It was the woman whose purse the boy had returned all those months ago. She'd been following their story through local news and had come with a proposal. As a successful business owner herself, she wanted to be a major investor in the cooperative, seeing it as a way to multiply the impact of that first act of honesty. The timing of her appearance felt like life had come full circle. The woman shared how the boy's honest action had affected her beyond just returning her belongings. It had restored her faith in humanity during a difficult time in her life, inspiring her to look for ways to make a difference in her community. Working against the clock, they assembled a diverse group of investors and supporters. The boys' architectural firm helped refine the renovation plans, making them more cost-effective while maintaining their vision. Local contractors, moved by their story, offered to do some of the work at reduced rates. But just as things were looking up, they hit another obstacle. The building inspection revealed some structural issues that would significantly increase the renovation costs. The news threatened to derail their entire plan, pushing the total cost beyond what they'd raised. The boy refused to give up. He spent days researching alternative construction methods and materials, looking for ways to address the structural issues while staying within budget. His knowledge from the architectural mentorship program proved invaluable as he worked with the contractors to find creative solutions. During this time, he still maintained his commitments to school and the community garden project. One evening, while tending to the garden with some of the youth from their training program, he had an inspiration. The garden had taught him how small seeds of hope could grow into something substantial with proper care and support. He proposed modifying their renovation plan to include a rooftop garden that would supply fresh produce for the catering business and provide therapeutic activities for the housing program residents. This addition actually helped their cause, as it qualified them for additional green building grants and tax incentives. The community rallied around their efforts in unexpected ways. Local artists offered to create murals for the building's exterior. A tech company volunteered to set up a computer lab for the training center. A local college expressed interest in partnering with them to offer accredited culinary and business courses. As the purchase deadline approached, they organized a community fundraising event that showcased everything their program represented. The boys' architectural designs were displayed alongside Aunt Rose's signature dishes. Current and former program participants shared their stories of transformation. The event space was decorated with his building flavors designs, each one telling part of their journey. The evening proved to be a turning point. Several attendees made additional investments, moved by the tangible impact of their work. A local foundation, impressed by their comprehensive approach to community development, offered to provide matching funds for the remaining amount needed. 2 days before the deadline, they secured the final funding needed to purchase the building. The celebration that followed wasn't just about saving their physical space, it was about preserving and expanding a beacon of hope in the community. As they signed the purchase papers, Aunt Rose held the boy's hand tightly. They both remembered that cold morning when she'd first offered him breakfast, how one small act of kindness had grown into something neither of them could have imagined. The boy's upcoming Chicago workshop now held new meaning. He would go there not just as a student of architecture, but as someone who understood how design could transform communities. His experience with the building purchase had taught him that architecture wasn't just about creating spaces, it was about building possibilities for people to thrive. That evening, as they shared a quiet dinner in their soon-to-be-renovated home, the boy reflected on how far they'd come. The building around them held more than just their business and living space, it contained countless stories of transformation, second chances, and the power of community. What had started with returning a lost purse had grown into a legacy that would continue to change lives for generations to come. The morning of his departure for the Chicago workshop dawned bright and clear. As Aunt Rose drove him to the airport, the boy clutched a leather portfolio containing his designs, including sketches of their newly purchased building, the community garden, and his visions for future projects. His hands trembled slightly, betraying his mix of excitement and nervousness about his first time leaving home since finding his new life. Remember, Aunt Rose said as they pulled up to the departure terminal, you're not just representing yourself anymore. You're carrying the hopes of our whole community. She handed him a small package. Open it when you get settled in Chicago. Their goodbye was emotional but quick. They both knew this journey was a necessary step in his growing independence. Arriving in Chicago, the boy found himself among 30 other young aspiring architects from across the country. During introductions, most students spoke of private schools and family architectural firms. When his turn came, he spoke proudly of his community garden project and the building renovation plan, watching as interest sparked in his fellow students' eyes. The package from Aunt Rose contained his grandmother's old Bible, with a new inscription from Aunt Rose: "Your grandmother gave you roots, and now you're growing wings. Both are equally important." Tucked inside was also a handwritten recipe for his grandmother's cornbread, a piece of home to keep him grounded. The workshop proved more challenging than he'd anticipated. The other students had years of formal training and sophisticated computer skills. But the boy had something unique: real-world experience in community-focused design and an understanding of how architecture could change lives. During a group project session, the students were tasked with designing a theoretical community center. While others focused on elaborate aesthetic features, the boy suggested practical elements he knew from experience: flexible spaces that could serve multiple purposes, a commercial kitchen for job training, and secure storage for people in transition. His ideas shifted the group's entire approach. One evening, a renowned architect leading the workshop pulled him aside. She'd heard his story and seen his work. "You have something rare," she told him. "You don't just design buildings, you understand the people who'll use them. That's not something we can teach." The boy shared stories of his time on the streets, how certain building designs had either helped or hindered his survival. He explained how this experience influenced his current projects, like incorporating hidden benches in the community garden that could serve as secure sleeping spots in emergencies. His unique perspective caught the attention of the workshop organizers. They asked him to give a short presentation about his journey from homelessness to architectural design. Standing before the group, he pulled out his phone and showed them real-time video of the renovation work beginning on their building back home, explaining how architecture and community development could work hand in hand. The presentation deeply moved both students and instructors. Several of his fellow participants approached him afterward, eager to learn more about incorporating social impact into their design work. One instructor offered to mentor him remotely, recognizing his potential to influence the field in meaningful ways. Meanwhile, back home, Aunt Rose was overseeing the beginning stages of their building renovation. She sent him daily updates, photos of walls coming down, community members pitching in to help, and the excitement building among their program participants. The boy would study each image carefully, offering suggestions and modifications to the plans based on what he was learning. During the workshop's final week, students were challenged to design a project addressing a real urban issue. The boy chose to focus on transitional housing, creating a design that combined dignity with practicality. His concept included features like private lockers, flexible sleeping arrangements, and spaces that could transform from day to night use, all inspired by his own experiences. His design earned him special recognition at the workshop's closing ceremony. The judges praised his ability to merge architectural innovation with deep human understanding. But what meant more to him was the interest other students showed in learning about community-focused architecture. The return home was triumphant, but not in the way he'd expected. Yes, he'd earned accolades and made valuable connections, but more importantly, he discovered his unique voice in the architectural world. He realized that his background, rather than being a disadvantage, gave him insights others might miss. Arriving at their building, he found the renovation work progressing well. The community's involvement had turned it into a true collaborative effort. Local artists were painting murals on the walls, telling stories of transformation and hope. The teaching kitchen was taking shape, and the upper floor's transitional housing units were being framed out. That evening, during their regular Sunday community meal, now being served from a temporary setup in the community garden, the boy shared his workshop experience with their regular attendees. He spread out his designs on the tables, explaining how each element was inspired by their community's needs and stories. A young girl, recently homeless herself, studied his drawings with particular interest. He recognized the look in her eyes, the same mixture of fear and hope he'd once felt. He spent time showing her how the building's design would create opportunities for people like her, explaining how his own journey from the streets to success had shaped every decision. The next day, he began implementing ideas from the workshop into their renovation plans. His new knowledge of sustainable building practices helped them identify cost-saving green initiatives. The remote mentorship from the Chicago instructor proved invaluable, providing guidance on technical aspects while respecting the project's community-focused nature. As construction continued, the boys started a blog documenting the renovation process and its impact on the community. He shared both architectural insights and personal reflections, attracting attention from other organizations interested in similar community development projects. One post particularly resonated with readers. He wrote about the symmetry of his journey, how returning a lost purse had led to finding a home, which led to saving a building, which would now provide homes for others. The post went viral in architectural and social work circles, bringing new attention to their project. Looking at the construction site one evening, the boy reflected on how far he'd come from that cold morning behind the grocery store. The building taking shape before him was more than just a structure, it was a physical manifestation of how honesty, community, support, and determination could transform lives. Aunt Rose joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Your grandmother would be so proud," she said softly. The boy nodded, thinking of how his grandmother's teachings about character and integrity had laid the foundation for everything he'd achieved. Together, they watched the sunset paint the building's partially completed walls in warm hues. The boy pulled out his sketchbook, already planning the next phase of their community's transformation. He knew now that architecture wasn't just about designing buildings, it was about building bridges between where people are and where they could be. Years later, Jeremiah, now a successful lawyer himself, stands before a crowd of supporters at a fundraising event for a homeless youth shelter he has established in Chicago. With Evelyn by his side, he shares his story once more, emphasizing the power of kindness, compassion, and second chances. "I stand here today not just as a lawyer, but as a testament to the incredible impact one person's kindness can have on another's life," Jeremiah begins, his voice filled with emotion. "When I was a homeless child, I never dreamed that returning a lost purse could lead me to where I am now. But Evelyn's compassion and generosity changed everything." He turns to Evelyn, his eyes glistening with tears of gratitude. "You saw potential in me when no one else did. You gave me a home, an education, and most importantly, a family. I can never thank you enough for the love and support you've shown me over the years." Evelyn, her own eyes brimming with tears, squeezes Jeremiah's hand affectionately. "You've brought so much joy and purpose to my life," she says softly. "Watching you grow into the remarkable man you are today has been the greatest privilege of my life." Turning back to the audience, Jeremiah continues, "Through my own experiences, I've come to understand that there are countless individuals out there who, like myself, have the potential to overcome their circumstances if only given the opportunity. That's why I've dedicated my life to providing hope and support for homeless youth in our city." He gestures towards the shelter behind him, a modern, welcoming building that stands as a beacon of hope in the community. This shelter is more than just a roof over their heads. It's a place where they can access education, counseling, and job training, the tools they need to build a better future for themselves. As he speaks, Jeremiah's passion and conviction are palpable, inspiring all those in attendance. Every one of us has the power to make a difference in someone's life, just as Evelyn did for me. I urge you to look for opportunities to show kindness and compassion, to extend a helping hand to those in need. Together, we can create a world where no child has to face the hardships I once did. The crowd erupts in applause, moved by Jeremiah's words and the incredible journey he has shared. As the event comes to a close, Jeremiah and Evelyn embrace, their bond stronger than ever. They know that their story is a testament to the transformative power of love, compassion, and the unbreakable human spirit. Walking hand in hand, Jeremiah and Evelyn leave the event, ready to continue their mission of helping others and spreading hope wherever they go. Their journey, which began with a simple act of honesty, has blossomed into a lifelong commitment to making the world a better place, one person at a time.